And if you would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and Tom's going to lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Clifton Camp will not be with us this evening. And so we'll go right to public comments. And I would introduce, as an opener, Dino Scala, who is your elected representative to the House of Representatives in Concord.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back. I'm sad to say I'm not here enough, but I think it's because you're such a well-oiled machine that I don't need to come back that much. See, the camera's rolling, Ernie. Ernie, this is what you had requested. Ernie Brown had requested some contact information for folks like myself, all the way on up to the governor. I believe you're building a website, is that correct?
That is correct.
So that's everything with your congressmen, your senators, your reps, and Ray Burton, I believe, is also on that list as well.
And what's nice is it's got the email address, it's got the phone numbers, it's got the mailing address for all of them. So
remember, Ray's, unless it changed, Ray's not our. He's not our county person.
You're correct. Yes.
So we're going to
apologize for that. He's not. I keep forgetting that it's that weird little notch out.
We're the one town that's not part of it. Even though we get his mailings, he must do it by county.
The great thing about Ray is even if he's not representing you, he still will help you out. So if you do have issues, what I usually do, if it's stuff that I can't immediately address in Concord, I run it up to Ray, and Ray, he's so good about plugging me into the right person to contact to help out constituents and everything. I do expect Joe Fleck here. He might be just running a few minutes late. As far as the State House, Joe, and that's probably him there, Joe is still down there. He's on Education Committee, and he's there quite a bit, doing a lot of legwork for that. Some bills that are still held over. Hey, Joe. Hey, Pat. As far as my committee, which is election law, the most recent thing that happened was we were unable to override the veto on the bill for voter ID. After that bill was passed, the House and the Senate, I heard a lot from town clerks meeting me on the street, and their main concern was the provisional part of the ballot, making that ballot not count until the person had proven their identity. That was a big issue. We are going to address that again next year. So I look for input for your clerks and your ballot officials and your moderator. I'd like to come back and talk to them a little bit about that and see if they have any ideas on that. As far as my committee, that's the big thing, was voter ID. And as I said, that will not become law. We did not override. Unless you have any questions of me, Joe and I kind of do a tag team thing here. If there's any questions that he wants or that I would field, I would turn it over to Joe if he had anything.
Well, can I ask you a question?
Yeah,
I saw you at a previous talk where you were discussing the redistricting and how they're going to add a new House seat for the county, and there was something mentioned about floating district or something. I had no idea. What did you mean by that?
Years ago we had that, and Ernie remembers that. We had a floating rep, and yours was Jeb Bradley, I believe, was the floating representative. And it's for the towns that don't have enough populace, but they do get brought into the mix. You have a rep that kind of will represent a couple of towns. I don't know if our area will get the floating representative. If it does, I think, Joe, is it my understanding we'll still have the 2 representatives and possibly that 3rd floater?
Well, no, I was thinking that we might have 2, but the floater would be one of those who would take on an additional area. In other words, it could be Freedom, for instance.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I had that mixed up. Where we have enough populace, where one of us, if we were to run again and win, would also have an additional town, for example, like Freedom, that doesn't quite have the populace to do that. So that's how that would work out. Joe and I actually kind of surprised how little we're hearing about the redistricting, because I think the committees are still meeting and it's still going on. So we do go back in middle of October kind of do some house cleaning with some other bills down there, and I expect we'll hear a lot more on it from there.
So if you end up with 4 towns, you're getting paid $25 a town a year.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Thanks, Dino.
Sure.
Joe, I was going to turn the floor right over to you, and then we'll go to other public input. But
I
I appreciate your taking
late,
the time and trouble to come and talk to us, even though the audience is small.
That's fine.
We do televise these meetings, and there are a lot of people that actually watch them, and Mr. Comeau can tell you about how many people hit that website. I don't know, but he does.
Yeah, well, I know Ed, and we see each other pretty regularly, and he does a great job to get the word out, I think. Lets people know how governments work in these towns. I do apologize for coming in late. I don't know what Dino covered. I hope he covered everything, and then I can see.
Yeah, it's all done, Joe, and you can just, actually, no, I was only speaking for about a minute before you came.
Okay, you know that there are still several bills that are on the docket that have been, that the governor had vetoed, and we still have to deal with those. We did deal with one of those in the last session day that we had, and then another session day is coming up on October the 12th. So whether or not we'll deal with all of those at that time, I don't know. That's up to the Speaker of the House to decide which bills he will take. And there are several key bills that we have not dealt with. As you know, the right to work law. That has not been, we have not voted on that override yet. We did vote last time on the expansion of the Castle Doctrine for people carrying weapons, which gave people the right to defend themselves anywhere they have a right to be, rather than just in their own homes. So whether they're coming to their defense, their self-defense, or to the defense of somebody else, they would have that right to do that. And so we have still several others to deal with. Just to go over some of the things that did happen, I think we have to take some pride as a legislature in what we did in the budget reductions. Because in the general fund, I think that reduction was something like almost 18%. The overall budget was something like 12%. So substantial reductions. And as part of that budget process, I think we also put in the right kind of fixes for the retirement program. So not only will it be a sustainable program, but it will ease the burdens on towns and municipalities, and it will also, if I might use the word, guarantee pensions for the years well into the future. So I think we made some strong moves in that area. But other than, and I might just say something about school, because education funding has been a big issue, of course, this year. And I've chaired a subcommittee that met to deal with potential changes to the formula for providing funds to the school districts, local districts. We decided to table that, or excuse me, not table that, we decided to recommend ITL for that, and to go with the funding formula that was passed by the full House, which will maintain a level funding for the next 2 years. And we did not feel that we wanted to get into a reformulation without letting that level funding go forward and see where we stand. I know that some towns, some school districts took somewhat of a hit in the special ed area, but all in all, and I've talked with school administrators, the ability to know what they have to look forward to was very important, because the way it was going before, school districts are trying to budget, but they don't know what they're budgeting for. They're not really sure what their funds will be, what the revenue looks like. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be pleased to answer.
Well, I would just comment that I'm on the school board and I'm on the budget committee, and it is very helpful for our planning purposes. And also, we have 3 unions, so we have to negotiate with them. And it's very helpful to know where we stand for those next couple of years. Without it, you're just budgeting in the dark. And with it, we are much more comfortable that we know where we're at and hopefully what the taxpayers can support.
Right. I think Dino and I talked about it, and I think we felt comfortable going forward with that kind of a level formula. I might just add one thing too on the budget, sort of a downside. I don't know if you mentioned the 35 million. We
No,
talked about
I
that.
didn't.
But the state is going to be subjected to returning $35 million to the federal government, and due to what was known as Metascam. It's the way Medicare funds were utilized. And that's something that goes back to, I think, about 1997. And I know that when John Stephen was head of HHS and Craig Benson was governor, they had planned to move the state into a managed care program for Medicare recipients. There was an agreement with the feds that if that were to be done, we would not be liable for the $35 million. But as you know, we did not move in that direction, and that's why we have the $35 million hanging over our heads. And some people are of the opinion that we may not be charged with that. I think the reality is that we're going to have to come up with $35 million. So that's the downside of the budget right now.
A question for you on a different issue. I was unable to attend that highway meeting that they had in Wakefield, 19th, from the highway department. And I heard from somebody that the state is considering plowing issues and doing it differently for highways. I assume trying to save money. For example, evening plowing, they're going to cut down on that. And the person that I heard from had great concerns over, was a road agent, as an example, I'll mention him, he's not here, in regards for safety issues, that once the snow got packed down, if they waited too long, there were going to be some issues. Do you know if anything was decided in changing the manner in which each district does their plowing and the scheduling and all that?
No, I don't, and Dino, you can fill me in there too, but I think that that's going to be an administrative decision rather than anything legislative. It's a matter of how they being the department heads, decide to utilize the funds that they have. Of course, the other side of that is that I suppose at some point, if it's not satisfactory, the legislature could act and say, well, we really need to pay attention to this particular concern. But right now, it's an administrative issue.
Yeah, Joe's exactly right. It's been handed back to the towns on a town-by-town basis, and where it's getting a lot of attention is up in Bartlett with Gene Chandler, who got really involved with that because he was very upset that equation could be happening where there'd be no plowing and everything like that. I personally feel that we all know there were cuts made throughout the entire state, every department. I personally feel that these cuts were made and they were deep all across the board. And it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction, possibly from DOT, saying, we've been cut so much, this is what we're going to have to do. But if the money's there and the structuring can be there and there's some streamlining, I'm not concerned that there won't be any plowing. I think it was between the hours of 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. or something like that. Unless let's hope that there's not huge amounts of snow. But I do think that was going to be on a town-by-town issue, and for this town and for Wakefield, I think we have great crews, and I think that if they are squeezed, I think if the money needs to be there, we can find it, and like Joe said, if we really do need to, go back to the state, we will do that as well. So, I would like to mention, now that the budget is behind us, I think things that you're going to be seeing, wouldn't you agree, you're going to be seeing a lot of social issues coming up on some bills. You're going to be seeing a lot of non-money issues coming. Right now, I think we're at 660 bills coming through the House. Right now, it's a little bit less than the first year. But a lot of those will probably get trimmed down in committee. They're doing something that they try to do every year. Leadership in both parties will really sit down with people and look at these bills and say, are you duplicating anything? Do you really need this bill? Is it really necessary? And they're really trying to streamline it even before it gets to committee. And I think that saves a lot of time and money because some of these bills, they might be duplicated, they might not be needed. In my opinion, the less that we passed down there. The